This is the thing that I work on all the time. And so much of it you'll never see. None of the work that I do will anybody ever know about. If you do care about YouTubers making more content, they have to diversify their revenue streams. There's a lot of funny business that is really negatively affecting a lot of YouTubers across genres. I can always come up with new stuff. A thief never can. They always just have to steal. So that's the glass half full side of being ripped off. Hey, welcome to The Great Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. I am Kevin Lieber, and I am all alone, sadly. Matthew Tabor is currently traveling somewhere. Not exactly sure where, 100%, but he's not here. That's for sure. And I figured I would pop in and just chat with all of you fine people about the top secret thing that I basically work on all the time and for some reason have never mentioned before, which is definitely a me problem that I'm trying to rectify right here and right now. But before we get into that, I saw something today that alighted very closely with something we've been talking about for many, many podcasts, which has to do with bad storytelling. And one of the things I had mentioned recently was this video discussing about how, unless you have clear morals for your characters, it's really difficult to tell a strong story, which is something that I agree with. And I think that many of the bad stories that we've seen have suffered from not having a clear morality within, the world that they're telling the story in, and then, clear characters to represent the opposing morals. Because without that, things get really mushy and gray and just kind of bland. So what I saw today was this quote by Michael B. Jordan about how his character in Black Panther was not actually a villain. Okay. Killmonger, was that the name of his character? Who 100% was supposed to be the villain, is the villain of that movie. He's, the bad guy who, I haven't seen that movie since it first came out, but from what I remember, he was like, was it like a friend betrayal thing where like he's friends with Black Panther and then he goes his own way to do his own thing, which is, diabolical and bad and morally reprehensible. So then, the good guy, the protagonist, Black Panther, has to defeat him, right? He can't let him win. If someone in the episode chat can correct me if I'm wrong about my brief synopsis of Black Panther, please do, so that I, don't continue to make a fool of myself. But what Michael B. Jordan said was that his character actually was not a villain. He just had a different perspective on, how to solve the problems of Wakanda or whatever. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is an example that illustrates my point completely, is that if we're going to be in this moral relativism where there is no good and evil, there is no right and wrong, it's just a matter of opinion, good luck having a great story. It's just a recipe for blandness. It's a recipe for things not having high enough stakes and not having clear enough, winners and losers. If at the end of the day, the bad guy's not really a bad guy. He just, he just had a different point of view. Like, okay. So then why are we rooting for Black Panther to win? There's nobody to root for. So now you're just kind of like passively sitting back and you're a witness between these two opposing yet valid perspectives. I mean, that can be entertaining a little bit, I guess, but it's certainly not emotionally captivating. I don't think that's something that's going to deeply affect you, or, you're not going to stand up and cheer when the good guy wins because he's not clearly the good guy, because that's what you want as a storyteller. Like, you want to tell a story where you have someone who's clearly the good guy, you have someone who's clearly the bad guy. The good guy loses and loses and fails and fails and fails. It looks like it's impossible for the good guy to ever win. Bad guy is so strong. And then against all odds, somehow through cunning or friendship or, whatever it is, the good guy triumphs. And then everybody says, yay. Why is everybody saying yay if at the same time you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, the good guy did raise some some good points. There was somebody else who I watched on YouTube who was actually detailing ways in which maybe it was the same girl. I think the channel's called The Second Story. I should come more prepared to give you details of things like this so that you can watch it for yourself. But I think her channel is called The Second Story. And she recently did do a video just about villains and mentioned how it's really tricky and tenuous to make your villain sympathetic. You should try to do that in some way to humanize them a little bit so that they're not just some, bland, generic evil. But it's a hard thing to pull off. It's a tough tightrope to walk. And I think she used Thanos as an example of the creators of those movies humanizing him too much, so that at the end of it, some people in the audience would think like, well, maybe Thanos had a point. And you certainly did see some of that. I do remember seeing people saying, actually, Thanos was right. Like, all right, that's not really what you want. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because we've been talking about storytelling, and I've been complaining for a while now on this podcast about not liking modern stories, and there's a good reason why. That was a good thing to point to, where there is this I don't know, there's like this cultural impetus to humanize and give way too much sympathy to villains to the point where it strips them of their villainy. And now you just have this wishy-washy story. It's just not as memorable. It's not as effective, as opposed to something like Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs. Like, people remember that bad guy forever. He's evil. Freddy Krueger or whatever, Jason Voorhees. There's a reason that there's like a Mount Rushmore of bad guys who no one is like, well, maybe Jason Voorhees had a point, Wasn't he like bullied at that summer camp? So maybe he should come back from the dead, emerge from Crystal Lake, and just chop innocent teens' heads off. Anyway, that's the story part. The top secret thing is something that I have been doing. Obviously I've been working on my book and I have talked about that. So you guys know about that. I am making progress with Sleep Warrior. I am meeting every other week with Jen, who is in the Discord, to discuss progress on the book. That's going really well. I've also been watching a lot of videos online simply about novel writing and storytelling, which have been phenomenal. If anyone is interested in getting eyeball deep in writing a book, Brandon Sanderson literally has a college course on this on his YouTube channel for free. I cannot imagine like a better resource, a free resource just available on YouTube in its entirety, unedited. You're just sitting essentially in class, watching him teach this class and, taking questions from the class and everything. I think it's like 17 installments of like an hour and 15 minutes each class. It's really good. It's really, really good. So that's another thing that I'm going through. It's really, really helpful. It's nice to hear from someone who is obviously extremely successful at storytelling and book writing, explain, the basics of everything from what type of writer you should be, how you can learn what kind of writer you are, different frameworks for plot and character and blah, 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 blah. If you're not interested in that, then this is all just washing over you right now. If you are interested in it and you want to get nerdy about storytelling, then I would recommend just looking up like Brandon Sanderson course or something like that. You'll find it on if you just go on his YouTube channel, the actual channel page, there's a playlist there and you just start from episode 1. And I think it's been illuminating for me. I imagine it would be illuminating for you. One of the things he talks about is hating the hero's journey, which I found really interesting. I had always assumed that the hero's journey was like the backbone of great storytelling. And then I'm watching this thing with Brandon Sanderson, one of the most successful novelists of modern times. And he's like, yeah, I don't really like it. It's kind of too rigid and at the same time kind of vague. And it's not really that useful. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting perspective. And, he also outlines things like how Stephen King hates outlining and thinks that outlining ruins a story. It's the death of story to outline your story because you're ruining your story before you're going on the journey of finding out what happens to these characters or whatever. But Sanderson and Orson Scott Card are heavy outliners. They need to know where they're going. They need to have signposts for their story so that they're working towards something specific. And, if it doesn't end up working out, then you can always change it. And that's definitely something that I've been doing with Sleep Warrior. I mean, I think I have fully outlined this first book, I think 4 times now. And the most recent time this last chapter just blew up my most recent outline. It just broke it. And that's okay, and that's something that Sanderson talks about. So it's nice to get some validation that, I'm not spinning my wheels or confused or anything, basically that can be part of the journey of writing is think you have an idea of what needs to happen. And you sit down, you start writing your chapter and you're like, well, that's actually not going to work at all. And since that's not going to work at all, the next 3 things I planned on happening also will not work at all. Because if the first thing doesn't work, then thing 2, 3, and 4 certainly aren't going to work because they needed to work based off thing 1. So anyway, that's been an interesting and slow process. I know that people have been asking me about when it's going to be done. The answer is not anytime soon, for a good reason, because I want it to be good. And I am not just, I'm not writing to write. This is another thing that I recognized recently with this story is that because I've been going deep with listening to other writers talk about writing and their process and, sharing feedback on how it goes for them. And I'm not the type of person who wants to be a writer. I am the type of person who just has a story that I want to write down. So that might seem like a small distinction when I say it out loud, but to me, it's actually a tremendous distinction because, a lot of writers are just like, how can I write something that will sell? Well, let me look at what trends are in the industry and, what book agents are buying. And then I'm going to write a story that's like that. Because if people really want to read scuba diving mysteries, then I'm going to write a scuba diving mystery. And I do not want to write a scuba diving mystery. I have no interest in chasing a trend or, becoming a full-time writer and just writing stuff to sell. I am compelled to write a thing to get it out of my head so that I can stop thinking about it, which is the same way that I started doing YouTube. There's no difference there. when I started doing YouTube, it was just to get ideas out of my head. Because once it's made, I don't have to think about it anymore. Whether I'm happy with it or kind of happy with it or upset by it and like, oh, that actually sucked, which obviously happens. At least I don't have to think about it anymore, which is probably like some kind of mental illness. That's maybe it's diagnosable. I don't know. But that is definitely a compulsion that I have where I get stressed and bothered by having ideas in my head until they're out, until they're done, until it's in some kind of tangible form, whether it's a comic or a song or a YouTube video or an animation or a short film. Once it's done, I can move on with my life. Until it's done, I feel beholden and like shackled to the idea because of just always thinking about the idea and wondering what it would be like if it were made. So that's why I'm writing Sleepwear. This is what that is to me. It's one of these things where it's like, I need to stop thinking about this. And the only way that I can figure out how to stop thinking about this, because originally I pitched it as a film years and years and years and years ago. I was part of a writing program to, basically become a filmmaker, and I wrote it as a film. I have a screenplay of it that I wrote somewhere. I have no idea where that is. There is a Sleep Warrior full feature length screenplay on a hard drive, probably somewhere. I literally just remembered that as I was talking. I completely forgot that I did that. But making movies is like impossible. It is one of the hardest industries you can possibly try to get into. I mean, if you are like an A-list celebrity, it's hard to get stuff made. If you're an A-list producer, an A-list writer, an A-list director, what's his name? Ryan Reynolds. It took Ryan Reynolds like a decade to get Deadpool made. He's Ryan Reynolds. And it took him, I'm pretty sure, like 8 or 10 years to get Deadpool made, which ended up being an incredibly, massively successful film. And it took him forever to get that made. So I hope that gives you a sense of how impossible it is to get a movie made. And even like making it myself, I'm not a good filmmaker. I don't have like a network of great. I mean, you need a massive team of everything from producers to makeup to prop master and, a DP, everything. It's insane. It's just so hard. So anyway, that's when I eventually just came to terms with the fact like, okay, actually the only way that I can conceive getting this story out of my system is to write a book, because I can do that by myself at my computer. I don't need funding from some Hollywood production company. I don't need a production company and staff of dozens and dozens or hundreds of people and dealing with changes being made and blah, 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 losing creative control, all of that. It's just that's a nightmare. That's not going to happen. It's way easier for me to just sit down on Scrivener and just write the story down. Just write it down. Just write it down. So that's the thing that I've been doing that you already know about. The thing that I've been doing that you really don't know about that's like the more kind of important thing that I've been doing is working full time on the Curiosity Box and our new endeavor, which is called Ink Factory. So one thing I wanted to clear up with the Curiosity Box is that people think that Michael and I aren't involved in that anymore. And that could not be further from the truth. Like Michael is incredibly, could not be more involved in the Curiosity Box. He is like the guy when it comes to everything that goes in there. So anything that you ever receive in a Curiosity Box, either was Michael's idea, his invention, or he worked with our team, which is a small and really talented team to develop it, to refine it, to give feedback on it, to give feedback on the packaging and the words that are on the package and what the product is called, like the name of it, and like everything, all of the nuts and the bolts involved. And so I'm still involved in that, not at all to the degree that Michael is, because I am more heavily involved in Ink Factory, which is our new sister brand that is focused on working with other YouTubers to invent stuff for them. So this is something that I am really, really excited about. You know, we've only gone live with a few products so far because it takes forever to invent a product. I mean, there are so many complications that you kind of wouldn't believe, depending on what the product is, and you know the R&D involved, and like certifications that you have to get. You know, what stuff can you ship? Is it legal to ship this? Oh, actually, it's not legal to ship this in this country, so it has to be changed to this. Or how do you package it? Everything takes forever. But you know, one of the first things, the first thing we launched was a partnership with Steve Mold, who, if you don't know Steve Mold, you should, because Steve Mold has one of the best channels on all of YouTube. Steve Mold is a really, really smart guy. And years ago, he did a great video on this thing called the Assassin's Teapot, which is, from what I understand, a bit of folklore. I think it's unclear as to whether or not this was actually a real object or if it's just kind of like a mythological object. But as the story goes, there was a dual-chambered teapot that you could use to poison your enemies. So the way that it worked is you would have tea in one chamber and then you'd have poison in the other chamber, but the two chambers are hidden within the teapot. So it just looks like a normal teapot. There's nothing, you know, from the outside and from its appearance that would give away that this thing has poison in it. It looks like a standard teapot, but the trick is that it has holes on the back. And by covering one of the holes with your thumb, it will pour out one liquid. And by covering another hole with your thumb, it will pour out the other liquid. So according to legend, this was a way to poison your enemy because you could pour yourself a cup of tea that was not poisoned from the teapot and you're safe. And then from the same teapot, you just cover the other hole. And now you're pouring poison tea into your enemy's teacup. So you drink your tea and you're fine. So it seems safe. And, you know, your enemy is none the wiser because you're like, oh, yeah, this is delicious tea. And then meanwhile, they drink their tea and they're dead. So the idea was at first, let's make this. Let's make an Assassin's Teapot. And then pretty quickly, and I wasn't involved in the brainstorming of this. This was Steve Mold and Michael. So those two guys put their heads together. You know, they had conversations and then they determined, well, how many people want to buy a teapot? You know, I don't own a teapot. I don't know I'm sure maybe British people. Do you all have teapots? Does every home in the United Kingdom have a teapot? Perhaps. In the United States, that's not really the case. But what people do have are water bottles. So then the question is, okay, how do we make a dual chambered water bottle where you could put two different liquids in the same bottle, and then depending on, you know, which hole that you covered, it would pour one or the other. So that's a new thing. That's a new idea that had to be figured out. So, you know, we have a team of people that we work with who are, you know, engineers and developers and chemists and physicists, and you know, the people that we work with are geniuses, and they spent a really long time, months and months and months. There were many, many, many different iterations because you make a thing and you think it's going to work, and then you test it out and it doesn't work, or the lid is leaking. So it's like, why is the lid leaking? We have to re-engineer this and redesign it so the lid doesn't leak. I mean, it's just always problems when you're trying to make something from scratch. But that's what we're doing with Ink Factory is inventing things from scratch that you cannot get anywhere else. And what gave us the confidence to start doing this with other creators is that's what we started doing with the Curiosity Box. So, for years, the Curiosity Box was essentially like a white label project. It was sourcing things and then creating new packaging for those things that already existed, because inventing stuff is really expensive because it takes a really long time and you have to pay people to work on a thing for a long time. It's kind of a funny little thing is like, people have to get paid for their labor. They like to have a job. And if their job is to invent a thing and it takes 4 months to get it to work, well, you need to pay them for those 4 months. So inventing stuff is expensive. And we just didn't have the resources to be able to do that before. But we do now. We have the team. We have people who this is all they do all day is they work on whatever the next crazy idea is and they invent it. They come up with prototypes and they test things and, okay, this plastic doesn't work, or, this type of lens isn't really working. I'm going to try something else. What if I filled it up with water? Would that, whatever. There's 3D printing involved, and there's so many little components to like anything that you could imagine that it takes a lot of trial and error and a lot of research and development. But we started doing that successfully with the Curiosity Box. We invented things like the Denary dice set, which is a set of dice 1 through 10. So you get a 1-sided die, a 2-sided die, a 3-sided die, a 4-sided die, all the way up to 10. And people loved that. We did the body deck, which is a transparent deck of playing cards, and each card is a different slice of the human body. These are things that, if they don't exist, it's kind of hard to make them exist because you can't just go on Amazon and buy them. Nobody's done the work on it yet. So you have to, you have to figure out what type of plastic to use so that it's transparent, but it, is scratch resistant because the scratches will make it less transparent. It'll get cloudy and, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff takes a long time. Yeah. Jeff mentions in the chat that the body deck is being ripped off. It is being ripped off left and right. Yeah. Yeah. It's rough. I mean, it's one of the rough things about inventing things is that, people get a hold of the idea and then they just steal it. And it's a expensive and difficult process to litigate or to have it taken down or, that's its own thing. Places like Facebook and Instagram, they do have a process that you can go through to let them know that someone is infringing upon your IP. But, now you need somebody doing that kind of full time if there's a lot of instances of it. Everything is complicated, my friends. Everything is complicated. The one thing that on, glass half full side of being ripped off is like, well, you made something worthy of being ripped off. It's not the most fun thing in the world, but at the same time, it's proof that you're on the right track. I mean, years ago, during the height of the Carlos Mencia joke stealing scandal. I don't know if any of you listeners are old enough to remember this, but back in the day, I don't know when this was, probably 20 years ago now. This was a while ago now. I'm going to guess it was like friggin' 20 years ago. There was a comedian named Carlos Mencia. He had a show on Comedy Central called Mind of Mencia that I believe was piggybacking off the success of Chappelle's show. And anyway, he was like long believed to have been a joke thief. And all of this blew up because at one point, Joe Rogan, before Joe Rogan was podcast guy Joe Rogan, he was just Fear Factor host and stand-up comedian Joe Rogan called him out. He like stormed the stage and just like ripped Carlos Mencia a new one over being a joke thief, which you could probably find a clip of on YouTube. Anyway, the reason I'm telling this story is because someone asked, this was a really like hot button issue for comics at the time. And someone asked Louis C.K. about joke thieves and, whether or not he was worried about joke thieves. And he said no, which I thought was interesting. This is why I remember this. I remember a Louis C.K. interview from 20 years ago because it surprised me. That's the type of thing that you remember when you're shocked by something. And I was shocked by this. He explained, no, I'm not worried about joke thieves because anyone who has to steal jokes cannot have original ideas. That's why they have to, or at least cannot have good original ideas. That's why they're a thief. And he was like, I have endless good ideas. I'll just come up with something else. Oh, you want to steal my bit on Pop-Tarts? That's fine. Okay, I guess that Pop-Tart bit is dead now. I'll just come up with something about Hot Pockets instead. I can always come up with new stuff. A thief never can. They always just have to steal. So that's the glass half full side of being ripped off. It's like, well, it's not fun. You should go after them. Definitely it's not right. And if they're making money off your stuff, that's also not right. And you should shut that down, especially if it's costing you money for the thing that you created. But at the end of the day, you'll come up with new stuff and they will not. So anyway, back to Ink Factory. So yeah, I am really excited about this. This is the thing that I work on all the time. And so much of it you'll never see. That's kind of like, I guess one of the reasons maybe I haven't talked about it too much is that all of it's like not public facing, a lot of basically none of the work that I do will anybody ever know about, which is obviously very different than being a YouTuber which is, all I did for 15 years. Everything I ever worked on, you could watch. You could just go to the YouTube channel. You could just go to Vsauce 2, watch the video and say, oh, that's what Kevin has been doing. Here it is. With this kind of work, the only time you'll ever see the fruits of that labor is when we launch a new product. And the only way to launch a new product is to go through a whole lot of stuff that will never see the light of day. So that includes talking to a whole lot of creators who, will never make a product with us for any number of reasons. Maybe it's not a good fit, or they don't have enough time, or, we don't all come to an agreement on what the product should be, and we're not 100% confident in it, then we're not going to move forward with it. There's just 1,000 reasons why something won't see the light of day, or, we research it and there are problems with it. Oh, we actually can't do it the way you want to do it because of XYZ reasons. And, there are manufacturing problems with it. There are certification problems with it because it's too dangerous. It's like, yeah, oh, you want to do a thing that's super dangerous? That's nice, but it's illegal. We're not allowed to mail that. We're not allowed to mail the thing to human beings that you want to mail to them, or else we will be sanctioned by the government. There's sort of like anything that you could imagine under the sun comes up with these conversations. There are creators who really want to work with us on something, but they don't know what. There isn't like a product deeply burning passionately within them that they want to bring to market, and it's like, okay, well then we shouldn't just throw something out there. You don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We're not interested in making stuff just for the sake of making it, or, doing anything that, selling anything that people would classify as a cash grab. Like, that's not interesting. Not interesting to me. And, from the creators that we've talked to, it's not really interesting to them either. If a creator wants to make a buck, what they do is they do an ad read. There's an entire industry based around doing ad reads for HelloFresh and ExpressVPN and anything else that you've heard a million times from creators who, sponsoring their videos. That's really how they make money. That's how they pay their bills. That's how they pay their editors. That's how they pay their management. That's how money gets brought in to business. When it comes to selling a product, it's like, well, this really needs to be something that I'm excited about, and that's something that we did. So we launched this summer. We launched with Michael the Death Clock. I don't know if you've seen the Death Clock yet. If you go to Ink Factory, and Ink is spelled INQ because ink is short for inquisitive, and ink is our octopus mascot. So if you've ever seen the little orange octopus that we have on the Curiosity box, that octopus is named Ink. So that's where Ink Factory comes from, inqfactory.com. This Death Clock that we finally launched this summer, is something that Michael has been talking about for a really long time. A really, 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 really long time. And it just takes a really, really long time to develop something like this because, again, it's not just like, let me just buy a clock off Alibaba or AliExpress or whatever and just tweak a few things. It's like, no, 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 no. This has to be engineered from scratch. Like the display has to have, 10 digits. It's not 4 digits on a normal clock because it has to be a countdown. Like that's the whole point of the clock. Point of the death clock is that you input answer a series of personal questions, input that into the clock, and then a timer starts. And the timer is loosely representative of the amount of time you have left to live. That's why it's a death clock. So it starts counting down the remaining time of your life in real time. The clock is just ticking. It's like a time bomb that you would see in the movies where it's clicking down. That's what the death clock does. And there were a lot of components to it that had to be figured out. It was like, okay, how do we design it so that you can answer questions in the box? Because that was another part of the development, is like, okay, well, do we just have a QR code on the thing and then people scan the QR code and it takes them to, deathclock.com, and then they fill out a questionnaire online, and then the clock has, Wi-Fi capabilities. So then it just like downloads the algorithm from the questionnaire. And it's like, no, 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 no. We don't want to do that. We want the thing to be an enclosed unit where everything that you need to do with the death clock is in the death clock. You don't have to scan a QR code. No one likes doing that. You don't have to download an app. You don't have to go to a website. No, none of that. There are no extra steps. Get the death clock. You set up the death clock. The death clock starts working out of the box, period. So obviously that required development. It requires programming. You have to figure out, how much do all the components cost and where are they being sourced and what does it look like aesthetically? It could look like anything. If you're inventing a thing, well, you're limited only by your imagination. What should it look like? And, obviously if you've seen the death clock, we settled on that like late 70s, early 80s bedside table alarm clock that for some reason everyone had. It was like the only clock. I mean, I know that we had it when I was a kid. My parents had that like faux wood grain clock with the red segmented digits on it on their bedside table. So that's what we decided to go with because we all liked the vibe of that. We felt like it would stand out amongst, everything now that people have, your Alexas and your Wi-Fi speakers and all of that. They have their own like very modern, simplistic, techie look to them. And we didn't we didn't want it to blend in with that. It's a really crowded space of everything looking kind of samey that you would get nowadays. And we wanted this to, to look different so that when people walk into a room and they see this strange old looking clock that's counting down in real time with the red segmented alphanumeric letters, LEDs, you say, what is that? What is that thing? And now you have a thing to talk about. So I also want to mention that you can use the death clock as a normal clock. So that was, another part of the development process is like, well, we don't want it to just be this doom and gloom, grim countdown of the remaining moments of your life. Maybe people don't want to look at that all the time. And we should give them the option to just hit a button and switch it to being a normal clock. So you could actually just use it as a normal clock. It'll look like a normal clock. And then you can switch it back to the countdown if you want. So that's another thing that had to be developed. Another part of it that was really, really important to Michael, and I just thought was such a brilliant idea, is that if it gets unplugged or if you lose power, the clock remembers where it was. So it doesn't reset, doesn't start over, it doesn't reboot. If you lose power and the power comes back on, the thing isn't bricked. You don't have to reset it and go through the questions and set it back up again. No, not only is it not bricked, it has continued to count down while it had no power, so that when you plug it back in or when the power, so like say you pack the thing up and you move to another apartment or a new office or something, it's still counting down, even though it's not plugged in. It will remember where it was so that when you do plug it in, it picks up exactly at the right time, exactly where it left off. So it really is a thing that you should just set up once for yourself and let it go and let it run until the clock strikes 0. And then you won't have to worry about looking at the death clock ever again. So that is another example of what we're doing with Ink Factory. We launched that in July, and it's still available for pre-order now. What else? I can't tell you things that I am not allowed to tell you. We also did the solenoid engine last year, which is a Lego compatible engine that you can build with a flywheel and everything. That also took really, really long to invent and to figure out. It comes with a bunch of weird different gears, like a Nautilus gear and square gears and oval gears. And it just looks amazing. I was talking with a YouTuber recently who received the solenoid engine and built it. And he was telling me how his once he finished it and he got it up and running, his wife walked in and was just like, "What is that? It looks so cool." And that's another thing that we did with Ink Factory. So we have a lot of stuff in development, a lot of stuff on the way. I am constantly reaching out to YouTubers who you probably have heard of to pick their brains and to just prod them for their interest in doing something. And many of them are in development. So there are things that we're working on right now that will be ready eventually. I don't know when. Nobody really knows when, because it's not going to be ready until it's ready. And there are so many ducks that you have to get in a row when it comes to a product that makes it a lot more complicated than, say, making a YouTube video. Making a YouTube video, you you write a script, you record the thing, you edited it, and you upload it. If you have a brand deal attached to it, then there's like an extra step in the process where it has to be seen and improved by the brand. They give their thumbs up. But either way, it's not that complicated. With a product, it is really complicated, especially if you're inventing something. rather than just putting your logo on a coffee mug. Putting your logo on a coffee mug or making a t-shirt, super, super easy. There are a billion places that you can go to do those things. You can do those things yourself. I mean, I've done those things myself. There are like 100 different companies that do t-shirts and stickers and posters and anything you can imagine. That stuff is super easy. I just made bookmarks. How long it took me way longer to design the bookmarks than it did to order them. It took 5 minutes to order 100 bookmarks. Literally just upload the artwork, choose what sort of finish you want, choose the size of the bookmark, the finish, the thickness of it, approve the artwork, and give them money. And then 2 weeks later, you have your bookmark. If you're trying to create something like the Assassin's water bottle, there's a million steps involved in that, from, designing and testing to renders, to approvals, to iterations, to do we add a strap to it so people can, have a wrist strap on the bottle? Okay, where does that go? How is that designed? What material is it made out of? What color is it? Like, I hope you're getting the picture. And that's just product design. That says nothing about, manufacturing and minimum order quantities and how long the manufacturing is going to take. Do you get samples from the factory? Approve those? How long does that take? Packaging? What is the lodgement? So that, like the lodgement for the packaging so that the item does not get damaged in shipping. That's its own process. Is it encased in like a styrofoam lodgement or a foam lodgement, or is it in some kind of like clamshell case? Or, any type of packaging that you've ever seen in your entire life is basically an option, and you have to pick one. You have to test one. You have to stress test one. And then once you manufacture them, then you have to have them shipped to a P&L, who will then they are like, the shipping people. They're like the distributor, and they go through the process of mailing it to everybody. Then you have customer service. There's always like a certain percentage that you allow for breakage. So you like over order by a certain percentage, because inevitably some small percentage of, if everything goes well, some small percentage of them will have a problem. So you have to replace those for customers. Anyway, you need a really well-oiled machine to pull this off. And we have one. We have a well-oiled machine with Ink Factory. We have people who are really, really smart and really creative, and, come to the table with a whole bunch of different options for everything you could possibly imagine, from, playing cards and illusions and dice and whiskey glasses and home rockets. I don't know, like literally anything is on the table, which is overwhelming in some sense, but also really the fun part. That's the fun part to me, because forever YouTubers, unless you're at the level of a Mr. Beast, who can just have, a meeting with, I don't know who makes his chocolates, but he must have had some meeting at some point with chocolate people, and the chocolate people said, "Hey, we'll make Feastables chocolates for you." And he said, "Okay, cool." Like, unless you're at that level, it's really hard to do something original as far as a product, because like I mentioned, you can do like white labeling of things that already exist, like coffee or energy drinks. It's really easy to make a label. That's not hard at all. Like, if I wanted to make Sleep Warrior coffee tomorrow, I make a few emails and a few inquiries and, put a down payment down, and I will have Sleep Warrior coffee, because there are companies who are already set up to do this. If you want to make a death clock, there's no phone to call. There's no phone number. There's no one to email. You can't email Vistaprint. Say, "Hey, Vistaprint, I know that you usually just like print stuff on mouse pads and coffee mugs. Can you invent a death clock for me? They will, they probably wouldn't even respond, let alone tell you no. It would just delete your email immediately. But now, like for the first time, we're able to have meetings with YouTubers and say, what's your crazy idea? Like, if you had the opportunity to make anything, what is it? What would it be? What kind of like kit would you make? What kind? And you have seen other, I will say that you've seen other YouTubers, or at least I have in my circles, make stuff, make really cool stuff themselves. Or at least they were the driving force behind making it recently, such as Destin from Smarter Every Day with his grill brush. I would highly recommend you watch the Smarter Everyday video about the grill brush. It's really cool, and it will illustrate to you how kind of hard it is, and how you really need the right partner to make a product. You have to partner with a manufacturer who will be able to make the thing. I mean, what's her name's Hacksmith are making a multi-tool which just exploded on Kickstarter. I don't know if you're aware of this. It is amazingly successful. And they're interested in making it themselves. So that's another route that you can take, but now you have to invest in like manufacturing stuff, and that's its own side business that you have to manage and, you know, see that it's run properly. But now, you know, with Ink Factory, we could just have a phone call. We could just have a chat and say like, hey, I want to make something. What is it? And if the answer is no today, but it's yes a year from now, that's totally fine. If it's yes today, then let's start brainstorming, and you know, eventually, hopefully, we will come to like we had brainstorming sessions with one creator that had a lot of ideas. Many of them were really, really cool. I think if any one of them actually got made, people would like them. But how should I say this? We just didn't land on something that everyone was like through the roof excited about. So, you know, we just hit the pause button. It's like, well, unless everyone is really excited about this thing, then let's just think of something else eventually. If something comes up, an idea that you like better, then we'll do that. But there's no need to force a thing because it takes forever. You know, it takes forever. Like I said, just not just on our side, but then on the manufacturing side. So, you know, we do these products through pre-order because you need to know how many to order to manufacture. You're not going to know that until you know how many have sold. And then at that point, you know, the manufacturing process is slow. You know, it takes a long time. I remember when we did the Vsauce vinyls, you know, we knew right out of the gate. They told us we had the conversations with, and there are a lot of companies that do vinyl, but it takes forever because they have such a long line. They have such a long queue that they are booked out for months in advance, months and months and months, sometimes a year in advance. Like they already have vinyl records for a year that they have to make before they get to you. That's just the nature of manufacturing. Like, yeah, cool. Place your order today and we'll get to you 9 months from now. And there's not any way around that. That's just the nature of manufacturing. So that's what I've been working on. Check out inkfactory.com and you'll see a small handful of products that have already launched. The Death Clock is available for pre-order now. There will be some other stuff coming soon. Cannot give too much away, but there will be other stuff coming soon. I can certainly say that. And I'm really excited about it for a lot of reasons. One is that it's really important that, and you know, this might be something that people who are not YouTubers care about at all. But if you do care about YouTubers making more content, you like their videos, you want them to make more videos, they have to diversify their revenue streams. I don't know if you have been aware, but there's a whole big thing going on with YouTubers and their views getting cut in half in August. And there's this whole hubbub about AI and age verification and restricted mode, not showing people's videos. So people aren't getting their videos in their feed because the YouTube bot has decided for some reason that it's, adults only, even though it shouldn't be. There's a lot of funny business and bad funny business, like funny business that is really negatively affecting a lot of YouTubers across genres. This isn't like, oh, only, EDU and educational YouTubers are being affected. No, it's literally the whole platform right now is in this strange place where people are seeing their views cut in half out of the blue. And your views are your livelihood on YouTube. And if that happens, then AdSense is cut in half. Your brand deals are cut in half. If everything is cut in half, now Tirzu just did a whole video about his channel, about the Tirzu channel, and about having to lay off people and having to do everything himself now because he can no longer afford to pay the people that he was paying before, and promoting his Patreon so that people could support him so that he can continue to make Tirzu videos. So this is, Red Letter Media did a whole video about this like days ago, yesterday, something like that. So when you have Red Letter Media and Tirzu both coming out in like a span of 3 days, talking about like dramatic changes to their channels, then something is up. So something is up. And one of the ways that I'm hoping to be able to help YouTubers is through Ink Factory. I think that it could be a really useful way to help YouTubers, but also bring things into the world that are cool, that people like. So like, I wish that more people supported this podcast on Patreon. I wish that more people supported the Mindblow channel on Patreon. But at the same time, I completely understand not feeling super excited about the value you're getting for that money every month. There's not like a tangible return on your investment. There's kind of a general return on your investment, which is that, the Create Unknown keeps getting new episodes. Mindblow keeps getting new episodes. So if that's enough for you and it's enough for some people, that's good because it makes all of the difference. Like this isn't, the money in those Patreons isn't going to, my watch collection. Not that I have a watch collection or I have ever worn a watch, but the money in those Patreons literally goes to paying the people who upload and edit those things. But I get it when you're like, well, I could just watch something else. I could just listen to another podcast, whatever. The thing that I like about Ink Factory is like, you can just buy a thing that you can have a tangible item that's really, really cool that you literally cannot get anywhere else. It is a 100% original invention that was, ideated by a YouTuber who you really like and that they're really passionate about inventing. That to me is a really, really, really cool model because now you can own a thing that's really neat and really unique and really cool that's tied to a YouTuber who you really like, and you're getting like a 1-to-1 return for your money, your hard-earned money that you're spending on a thing that helps out the YouTuber, but at the same time, like you get to own a death clock, or you get to own an Assassin's water bottle, or you get to own Vsauce music on vinyl, or a solenoid engine. Like you're just getting a thing that's, not just swag. It's not just something from Redbubble that, it's not Kevin Lieber's face on a Redbubble t-shirt. That's not exciting. What is exciting is buying a product that took a year to develop, that you can't get anywhere else because no one else has thought of and no one else would go through the trouble of making. So check that out. That's what I've been doing behind the scenes. It is a very behind the scenes job. And the front of the scenes is on inkfactory.com. So you'll see the fruits of the labor there. We'll be back next week. Matt should be back. We should get a little Tabor action back here very, very soon. Until next time, I guess I'll just say, see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sidpoke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferry-kun, Jen Maffasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Videover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight Vintos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev Stead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.